levels of Kenyans. Thank you.
Yes. Anybody else? Yeah, question. I just want to plead that you send us the full version of your presentation, because what we have here seems to be an abridged version. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe for me, and I also want to join my colleagues in thanking you for this very insightful presentation. And I will be very specific. When you talk about progressive taxation, and you say you consider progressive taxation which ensures that those who can't afford to pay more do so, my straight question to that is that would that be in relation to what happened in the Finance Bill of 2023, where those earning above 500,000 shillings were the ones being taxed more in terms of the review of the tax bracket? That, in my view, would fall within that category of a progressive taxation system, where people who are earning, as proposed by Parliament in this year's Finance Bill, people who are earning above 500,000 shillings are now required to pay more tax than others. And that also falls within the other provisions, even what is currently being debated by Kenyans in terms of universal healthcare and NHIF, where those who earn more should pay more. But unfortunately, in our circumstances, I think those who pay more also have the elements of the microphone that I'm using and access to the media, and therefore are more critical of tax policies that are progressive. And therefore, those then at the bottom of the pyramid who have no access to the microphone and cameras that we have access to, then have no voice to speak for them. And we find ourselves in a situation where those of us who are earning more have a louder voice than those who have no voice. And probably those are the people you saw wearing sufurias in the streets, as Kwame said, because they had no voice to speak for them. Two, you have spoken about the paradox of tax, increase the tax dilemma and the paradox of austerity. And I fully agree with you as a student of economics. However, the successful interventions that you quote, Arthur, to me are more of interventions that would work very well in an efficient economy. And I believe Kwame, who is here, who is also a student of economics, would agree with me, just like Arthur, you probably would agree with me, that Kenya is not an efficient economy. And therefore, being an inefficient economy, we may have to borrow from some of the unconventional methods that you have proposed of Ireland. And I want to believe that is what Honorable Hassan Omar was referring to, in relation to the monetary policy that the central bank governor spoke of, I think, only last week, in terms of the interventions that have been there on the Kenya shilling. And now they are saying they have allowed the Kenya shilling to take its equilibrium level without propping it up artificially. Would that also, my question be, warrant or qualify to be such an unconventional method as the case was for Ireland? Two, I agree with you, despite being an inefficient economy, Germany, you told us, South Korea invested increasingly in infrastructure. My direct question, the heavy investment in housing, the heavy investment in infrastructural development in terms of rollout of roads projects across the country, do these qualify again as such increased investment and increased spending in infrastructure that would spur economic activity and help our economy recover? Because I think, as you have said and all other presenters have told us today, we are yet to recover from the effects of the COVID pandemic. The heavy investment, I think in your conclusion, you have rightly advised us to deal with issues to do with transparency and accountability in government, and the control of budget had also touched largely on that, and I think even the Institute of Economic Affairs. You've also rightly advised that we heavily invest in education, and I'm not sure I have the figures, but I think education in the last budget that we passed in Parliament, it was actually the highest consumer of our resources at about 27.2%. followed by energy, ICT, and infrastructure at about 20%. Would we then say that heavy investment in education is what you're advising us that we should look into? Besides, of course, other social safety nets like the investments that we have proposed under the universal health care in the 4 bills that Parliament passed and was sent to just about 3 weeks ago. Would this, as my question, be also warrant some of those very sustainable measures that will help our economy to recover? Vis-a-vis what you have said would be other interventions, and I rightly agree with Honorable Eugene Wamalwa that indeed there were interventions, and I was the chair of the budget committee in 2019, and we had tax cuts. But remember, these tax cuts were only for a period of about 6 months. How sustainable is it to have tax cuts that are for a short period, vis-a-vis now the probably longer view measures that you propose in terms of heavy investment in infrastructure, heavy investment in education, heavy investment in ICT that this current administration has taken, vis-a-vis those, I'm trying to avoid the term knee-jerk reaction to the COVID pandemic, which was a short-term stopgap measure for tax cuts that were only for a period. We agree, and I think the presenters before you, Arthur, if you are listening, have indicated that some of the, and I think it was the controller of budget or one of the other presenters whose presentation had the shortfalls that come with such tax cuts, and the huge fiscal deficits we are left in, those fiscal deficits leading to heavier borrowing. Where would you advise us to sit in? Would you propose that we go for this short-term knee-jerk tax cuts that will get us into a larger hole that we were in from the presentations by the earlier presenters? Arthur, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Arthur, you can go on. Maybe attempt to answer